Okay, let me bring in Mr. Parath again. Mr. Parath, as a person who assesses the economy in every aspect of it, especially the macro level, what really gives you satisfaction in terms of how things have been continued to ensure that India remains on that or returns to the high growth path? Because we've slightly slowed down, although we still remain the fastest growing large economy, developing economy in the world. But what gives you the most satisfaction? What still remains a concern for you?
I think I will highlight two aspects of this budget, which I think are promising areas of focus. I don't intend to say that these will necessarily mean that India comes back to a high growth trajectory in that sense. But I think what I'll insist on is that there are two areas. One of them is the MSMEs, and the other is exports. These two are areas which, on an average, we don't get to see being covered with as much of care and sensitivity as they have been done in the current budget. And I'm choosing my words quite carefully over here because when we look at the articulation of, let us say, the MSMEs and the recognition of the fact that their investment and turnover limits are going to get changed, they are going to be provided a credit guarantee cover, especially the exporter ones. There is an implicit recognition of the fact that the MSMEs have been very important to the economic prospects of the country. And perhaps to that extent, the policy ecosystem which goes behind their nurturing needs to be that much more supportive and complementing in their efforts. So they are contributing between themselves almost half of the country's exports. Now, if the MSMEs themselves are put in a position where their cost of compliance comes down, there is a light touch regulatory system, and at the same time, they are being brought into the specificities of industrial production, making them capable of joining industrial value chains, supply chains globally, then it's a win-win combination for the economy. And this is precisely where I want to also emphasize upon the fact that today the Indian trade scenario, looked at it from a global perspective, is encountering quite a few unpredictable issues. We have had issues from the past. The Ukraine war continues. The dollar is exceptionally high. This is making it very challenging for exporters to invoice their products in dollar. India is trying to shift more towards trade in Indian currency, but that has its structural limitations. So at this point in time, the kind of efforts that have been brought in for encouraging exports, and let me pick out two of this. First is the fact that there's a national framework which is being proposed for global capability centers. And as we have seen, the latest trends show that the global capability centers have been instrumental behind Indian service exports exceeding the manufacturing exports.
Right.
And they're really also playing a very significant role in pushing India up the ladder as a technology and innovation hub, integrating India into the service value chains, and also generating domestic jobs. So I think if that kind of a framework comes in where the GCCs are being enough space to move out in various parts of the country and not get congested in a handful of cities, we are definitely expecting to see a much robust growth of services exports from the country along with concomitant benefits. And the final point over here, which I'd like to mention, is that for a very long time there has been this complaint that when one looks at India's customs duty structure, it tends to suffer from what we call the inverted duty, legacy issue, where the customs duties on imported inputs are much higher than those on the final products, which completely overlooks the fact that in many cases exporters need to actually import inputs for assembling their products, and that is where an inverted duty structure makes them lose their competitiveness. I'm very happy to note that in the current budget, this problem has been substantively addressed
Okay.
with an effort to improve India's export competitiveness and bring down overall cost of production. So that is why, going back to what I said in the beginning, I think these two taken together are very promising areas of focus. Not that they are going to probably generate the benefits immediately within a period of 6 months or three quarter, but they are certainly steps in the right direction.